She's been with Eagle since I believe '01. Got lots of experience in here. And then we have Carly Money and Amy Prana, also with Eagle. So,
Yeah, I think Amy's been here for 7 years. 8, 7,
it'll be 8 years.
8 years here and about 4 years for Carly. She's pre-COVID, we got her. So. Yeah, I know, we were lucky, right? We lost one of them. But that sounds bad. Anyways, welcome. The title of this is the Sunrise Materials Management Planning, which I know, just out of show of hands, who was here yesterday for connecting the dots? Everybody?
Wow.
You're awesome. Now, the room's not as cool, which is kind of cool because it's not as scary, right? But anyways, it's exciting times right now. And when we were talking about the titles, like, really, it's exciting. It's finally here. It's taken us a long time to get here. And we get excited, or I get excited about it, which means you should be excited because I'm excited. That's what I tell my kids anyways, right? Anyways, so I'm going to go through some things. I might be going fast. We're going to try to leave a lot of time for questions. It's a 90-minute session. And know that we don't know everything. We don't know everything yet, and we're building out stuff, and you're going to get outreach and education. We are going to do a roadshow eventually. So just so you know, we understand you don't know everything, okay? So this is our materials management planning team. There was quite a few years. There was just Christina Miller in the house, and that was it. So it's exciting to have 2 additional staff, and then Jeff Spencer is in the back there. He is our fearless leader of our unit. And so right now, this is our group here. And you will be getting slides. So I always feel like it's nice to have the picture. That's why, I know you can see us in my, but it's nice when you get the slides, you can remember who we are when you look at the name. So anyways, yes, we have a new program. Part 115 was passed. We've heard about that lots this last couple of days. What's cool about the new legislation is they divided it up in subparts, which makes it significantly easier to find what you're looking for. So there is a subpart 11, which is all about materials management planning. So essentially you can go to that subpart, you can read it. That is online, I believe, on our website. It is? Yes. Okay. So it's online. She's my web person too. So it's awesome. And so definitely go out there and read that there. You'll have to look at the definitions, which is in the first first subpart, but for the most part, the legislation was done with some thought process in it. So you didn't have to bounce between sections, and because it was really difficult in the past. Okay. So anyways, yes, all counties will have a materials management plan in the future. So that's the first thing. So let everybody know. You have a current solid waste management plan. You will have a materials management plan. Now, it can happen a single county plan or multiple counties. And as we go through this presentation, and every presentation that we talk about, every time I talk to folks, really are encouraging multi-county planning for the benefits of you guys and us, the whole state as a whole. I think it's huge for us to do that. So all counties will have a plan. The focus has changed. It's not just on disposal. It is on materials management of all the materials that are generated, recyclables, organics, and solid waste. And, we also talk about diverted materials, but that's technically a solid waste, right? So that's where that is. So it's on all materials. So the shift has changed. So the plan has to change, right? And so yesterday, as we talked, the plan is the vision, and it's setting priorities for your county to help achieve that overall 45% recycling rate as a state, and to help build the capacity we need, and help help supply the markets, to help build create the jobs. All those things are needed, and the plan is the tool, like we talked about yesterday, that houses all that information. You're going to identify the infrastructure needed and for utilization capacity. So we say capacity, that's a term I use all the time. Make sure you have a facility you can send your materials to that actually has the ability to manage that material, your recyclables and your organics. And basically to move Michigan overall towards this goal, right? And honestly, thinking about it, planning hasn't happened. The last round was in 1997. At that time, we had a lot more personnel resources at the county level. There were recycling coordinators and solid waste coordinators. There were people that knew what a plan was. You guys all know what a plan is a little bit because it's been here for a couple of days, and some of you I talk to on a regular basis. So you know that there's one that exists out there, but there's a lot of people out there that don't know this yet. Right? They have a plan, it's been there, it's still active, it's still valid. And it will stay valid until a new materials management plan goes into effect or is approved. However, we're going to hopefully bring back some of that personnel, those resources, people, resources out into the counties, into the locals, not just be a few of us. I mean, there's still 25-ish counties that have like people there that know what they're doing. And do this on a daily basis or parts of it, but really we need significantly more to help us move this goal forward. So I'm going to get down into the nitty gritty on some of these things. So hopefully I don't gloss you over. So before lunch, so you'll be wide awake. Okay. So like I mentioned, in your county plans, and I brought it up earlier too, all materials management facilities that are in your planning area will need to be identified in your plan. Planning area would be all county or counties. If three counties write one plan, that's the planning area. Those three counties, the planning area. Okay. So I'm going to use that term forever going forward. I'm trying to shift us to those terminologies. But anyways, all materials management facilities will be included in your county plan. Not all materials management facilities will need to be authorized, as you heard earlier in Rhonda's talk. But all of them will be included. You'll want to identify all landfills that are there, all solid waste and processing and transfer stations, which have been combined. There's in the old law, it was the two separate facilities. It's one facility now going forward. And then we have one MSW incinerator at this point, so that would be included in that county plan. And then all of your new facility types, your material recovery facilities, your compost facilities, your anaerobic digesters, and the innovative technology facilities. Yep. E-waste is, depending on how it's regulated, if it's regulated under the e-waste law, it's not considered a MRF. If it's not regulated under the e-waste law, then it is considered a MRF. Okay. And there's a provision in there. Yep.
Digesters that don't only take material from the person who owns them, or digesters. Bill's has the digestion problem with the county.
Yeah.
But it only takes Bill's material.
Yeah, so I believe Aaron said yesterday, if it's generated on site and they manage it on site, it does not need to be included, but no, does not have to be authorized. However, we'll get there. We'll talk through it. So let me keep going and we'll definitely answer questions. If it's like an immediate, my hair's on fire, I need to answer this, let me know, okay? Okay, so anyways, so not only are you going to identify these facilities for your purpose because they exist in your planning area, you also will need to identify it for capacity purposes to make sure you have the ability to manage that material. And there's a requirement that if you have yard clippings collection in your county, you have to send it, you have to identify where that material is going. It doesn't mean that facility is authorized, has to get a registration and all that stuff, right? There might be smaller communities, it's under the 500 cubic yards, 5 semi-truck trailers, as Aaron said, of materials. And I know municipalities have those, but you're still going to need to identify that facility in your plan so that you can use it for capacity purposes. Makes sense? Okay, you don't need to see this. It's little, but I'm going to show it to you. Rhonda showed it earlier for facility authorizations. And the point to this slide is that all these facilities I just mentioned are supposed to be consistent with your county plan prior to being developed going forward. There's a provision in the law. I mean, there are some exemptions, if you're exempt, you don't have to do it, right? But there's only the smaller facilities that happens to, okay? Smaller MRFs, very small compost operations or organics operations. So, but if you are exempt, you don't have to do this, but everybody else is supposed to be consistent with their plan in order to be developed. So going forward, that message really needs to be loud and clear. We talked earlier in the facility session that, maybe we need to do some more outreach to businesses and the municipality to let that message get widely shared. But really, just so you know, as a planner or somebody who's interested in planning, that is how it's supposed to be. There are time periods in the law that allows you to come into compliance if you're existing. Okay, 1 year, 2 year, I don't want to get in the nitty gritty of that, but so there's a process for that, okay, going forward. So, just basically, that's what this shows you. Okay, so moving on to a couple other requirements of the materials management plan. So every county plan will have an established MSW recycling rate in there. So you'll have to find that out, okay? And then you're gonna have to, as I mentioned yesterday, develop goals to achieve and divert recyclables and organics from being disposed. And any other activities, fun activities you do in the county or your planning area, or things that you may want to do that are more reuse based or sustainability based. You know, like those goals can also be included, but they're not required to be in there, okay? You will have to, however, identify goals in your plan and show progress towards meeting those goals going forward through an implementation strategy, okay? And then this new requirement is also that you'll have to meet the benchmark recycling standard. Matt Flechter showed that briefly in the connecting dots yesterday. Maybe not, maybe it's the other one of those sessions. And that's basically an access and an education standard. That's what that is. Making sure you have a place to send your recyclables and having a baseline standardized education plan, essentially, okay? Okay, so in the new materials management plans, there's this infrastructure for transportation for all managed materials, which is kind of exciting. In the current plans, people would say, oh, we have 4 waste haulers, you know, whatever, 3 waste haulers, whatever. That's all they would have in there. And the future plan, we see it as more like it's the yellow pages, right? Yeah, yellow pages, right? So that you could say, oh, I want to start doing a food waste collection as part of my goals. I wonder who in my county service or some hauler services our county that collects food waste. So our hope is that we can include all of those types of haulers into the plan as an infrastructure, you know, like it would be a list. So you can see organics, yard waste, recyclables, solid waste. We're not, you know, we have to have all of those components in there. So this future plan will have all of these types of material or haulers listed in there, okay? And the logistics of like, you know, junk, 1-800-JUNK or whatever, you know, I don't know all those pieces yet, but at any rate, we know that we want a list of people who haul materials and to help us, our locals, our residents and our counties be able to figure out who we can contact going forward. Okay, so in the new law, you'll have to have an enforceable mechanism and you'll identify responsible parties. That's not a new law. That's not new, something new. In your county plan now, there are entities identified in your plan responsible for implementation and enforcement. There's other things like that, responsible parties for education and outreach and maybe collection of different things, maybe special programs. So that's those type of responsible parties. There's specific ones and then whatever you need for your county. It's not prescribed what type of responsible parties we're referring to. But also any mechanism that is included or that controls the development of a new facility has to be included in your plan. Because technically that's like a siting criteria, okay? And all siting criteria going forward, it's going to be in your plan because all these facilities will have a siting process, which we'll talk about in a second. But so that said, there'll be a section that says list all your ordinances and list all your, you know, agreements if you have them. You know, there'll be a way for you to identify those things. And so you'd say municipality X has an ordinance. This is the ordinance, and it controls Y, whatever it is. You would identify that. That's how it is today too. You don't have to include all those things, but it's encouraged you to do those things so that you can really control or understand what the whole mechanism, what the whole materials management infrastructure looks like, right? And it's also beneficial to know that when you build out a multi-county plan, let's say you have a county-wide ordinance for something, you would say County X has this ordinance for this purpose. County Y has this ordinance for this purpose. These agreements, right? So it doesn't mean you have to share those resources, like just because County X has an ordinance that County Y has to take that on, but they could, right? But you don't have to. There's some separation in there. I want to make sure that that's heard clear, okay? So as we build out plans, that you have the opportunity to do that. Let's see. Again, small, and I did make it darker, but it made, the font is terrible. So when I switch to this computer, it doesn't have the same font. So anyways, you don't need to see it. I'm gonna tell you what it says. So anyways, so it's important to know there are 2 pathways for developing facilities. So previously to the 115, you could not develop a MRF without meeting local zoning ordinances. Okay. Future, now, you can't build a MRF without meeting local ordinances. Okay, if you're gonna follow this pathway, I don't know where the little button is. There it is. There's a local zoning ordinance ability to cite to be determined consistent with your plan. Okay, you're still gonna have to authorize to trigger it. But if you meet local zoning, you get that local approval, you document that as part of your application. And that's what you would, you'd submit to the department through retract, as we learned earlier, to get your authorization level for those facilities, okay? And that is for all material utilization facilities can follow that pathway, and exempt solid waste processing and transfer stations can. Okay, if you're not exempt, or in the locals, you don't meet local zoning, let's say you don't meet some requirement that they have out there, you can follow this pathway. Okay, and in that one is like, it's very similar to the way it is today in your citing process. There's a set of criteria, there's a process and a set of criteria. And in this case, there's a minimum threshold, like everybody has to meet, can't be in a industrial zone or residentially zoned area. Let's say the minimum is you can't be in a residential area, okay? And then you meet all those criteria, and you get host community approval. Then you can be found consistent with the plan, okay? But let's say you don't get host community approval, they don't want you there. And you've met the minimum threshold. Then you continue down this pathway a little further. And then what happens, there's a higher level threshold that says you can only be in an industrial zoned area, let's say, and maybe different setback requirements and other things. And if you meet those criteria, the higher level, and get county approval, then you can get your determined consistent and could apply for the general permit or your solid waste permits that you might have to get. Okay,
You say county approval or?
county approval,
County approval, so not, so still local may not approve,
correct.
but if county approves them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Rhonda mentioned this earlier, so the previous law was focused on disposal, and it was developed at a time, I shouldn't say get into this detail, but it was developed at a time that we were closing dumps and we were opening landfills. I think Karen might have said something about, but anyways, it doesn't matter. And people did not want a landfill in their backyard. So the siting process was designed to make sure you had a place to send your solid waste. That's what it's designed for. In the future, it's designed to make sure you have a place to send your organics to. That you have a place to send your MRF or recyclables to. And that means if they don't want it, so you can't, there's a provision that says you can't exclude, like municipalities are not allowed to exclude the development of a compost facility, let's say. They can't do that. They could follow this process, and if they meet the process, they could be developed there. But you have to get the plan approved. There's the rest of us to this, the picture, okay? Oh, I did it, but then I went too far. Okay, so, is that the right side? Did I miss one?
It looks like this is the right one.
Okay, yeah, it's right. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing is that we get this question all the time, like, well, what about Headley Men? You can't, I had this question the other day, maybe the person didn't hear. I'll call them and tell them, ask them, yeah. So the, it's not an unfunded mandate. Do we have funding in the law? $60,000 a year per single county, which I know in some counties cases, that's not gonna pay for you to develop your plan and implement the plan. I know that it's small, but it's also, it's smaller than some counties. Like Wayne County, I'm sure costs significantly more money to write their plan than it does to have Alger County write their plan, right? They have completely different infrastructures, people and all that stuff, right? But $60,000 a year we had a stakeholder group and they said, well, let's figure out like how much would be enough to help counties to have sustained amount of money, $60,000 a year, so long as you're preparing your plan or you're implementing your plan. That money will come to you. Now, there's a process to get there to be eligible, but if you are doing things, if you're doing those things, showing progress towards meeting your goals, the county will be receiving those funds. Now, I mentioned earlier that there are incentives for regional, and the incentive is $10,000 additional per county if you're working with multiple counties. So 3 counties would get $210,000 a year as a unit, okay, as a planning area to do their stuff, $70,000 per county, okay? And then the first 3 years, because we know it takes a lot of building up and infrastructure, we got to get everybody on the train, right? And it takes some time to get stuff going. We have a per capita, 50 cents per capita, up to $300,000 a year that you would get for the first 3 years to help with those higher upfront costs to really get things moving and going. Okay, so there is we have a guidance document that's in process of being finalized. Eventually, all this stuff will show up online too. So just so everybody knows it. And I get this question a lot. So what can you use the money for? Like everybody wants to know this answer. It's not as prescriptive as you think, and it's done that way on purpose, right? As long as you're developing your work program, which you'll have to do as part of your, when you file after you file a notice of intent, developing or amending your plan. That's what the MMP stands for. All your public participation stuff, all of your consistency reviews, facility reporting purposes, recycling, education, outreach. That's pretty broad if you look at it, right? Establishing and continuing material utilization programs, again, very vague for a purpose, for a reason. You guys know your programs. We don't know we're not going to tell you you have to do these things. You guys are going to give us, as part of your work program, how you're going to use this money. And you say what you think this means, okay? I'm not saying we're gonna prove you to buy a car or something. I'm not saying to do that. But it's really on you guys to make sure you have you're thinking through these things, right? Preparing any reports for Eagle, supporting the planning process and any efforts related to implementation. Now, those are broad for a reason, like I said. So the another thing we get questioned on a lot is what about this money? So let's say that group I just mentioned that to you has $210,000 in the first year after they file their stuff and do all that. Is it going to cost them $210,000 to write the plan in that first year? So the answer is probably not, right? So as long as in your budget, when you're showing us your stuff in your grant, or filling out your grant contract and all that, you show this money is being used to develop a plan, you could use implementation money right away, right? So you don't have to wait until your plan is done to start using that money for implementation. Make sense? I got some questions on that one? Okay. All right. So we're going to shift gears now a little bit and talk about who are the people responsible for this planning program. And essentially let folks know the 3 items, the 3 people, 1, 2, and the top one are the 3 entities. The new one is this county approval agency. Like, what is that thing, right? Yeah. So we are going to send the request or the initiation from the director, and it will go to all the board of commissioners or their county executive. Okay. It's their responsibility first, which we'll go through this in a second. They get to choose whether they want to become the CAA or not, the county approval agency. If they choose not to, they decline. There's a process that we'll talk through who the different entities could be. But the bottom line is the county approval agency is responsible for the plan. It's what the board of commissioners was in the past. But what we found in our stakeholder group, they were saying, hey, we really need the counties when they decide they're going to do this, so they understand that they're responsible for the planning program. There will be a sustained committee going forward. There are things in the law that makes you look at it every 5 years, all those pieces. So just so you know, that's the new entity there. And we're going to go through we're gonna go through these, a little wordy, but it's important to know this. So like I mentioned, the Board of Commissioners will receive the request from Eagle to prepare the plan. They will be the entity filing the notice of intent, assuming they want to become the CAA, if they want to do that. But if they choose not to, they will get the money on the annual basis. And they will have to distribute that money within 60 days to the CAA if they choose not to be, and either the municipalities working jointly or the regional planning agency takes on that responsibility, they would get the money, okay? And if we write the plan for them, they will automatically be required to implement their plan. And they're not eligible for the grant dollars, which you'll hear about that in a second, or when Amy talks. There's a note down there, we're just gonna skip it. Okay. So the county approval agency, they're responsible for all aspects of the plan. They need to make sure that the plan's being implemented as needed. They're the ones appointing the DPA, the designated planning agency. That's the person who's the worker bee, which you'll see in a second. They oversee the creation and the development of the plan of the DPA's work program that identifies the budget and the steps that they're going to take to get the plan approved. They're going to utilize, they're the ones in charge of utilizing the funds to make sure it's appropriately spent for implementation or plan development. They get the ability to approve the plan prior to going out for municipal approval. And they would approve any plan modifications if needed by the department to make it approvable as written, okay? And this section here, responsible for identifying capacity needed for the planning area or identifying specific strategies, including a scheduled approach to develop and fund capacity needed for the planning area. So let's say you do not have a facility to send your yard clippings to. In your plan, you'd have to have an approach. This first round, they're responsible for figuring out where we're gonna put this facility. What's our approach to get that done? Are we gonna partner with somebody to do it? What's the funds needed? They're gonna have to they're the responsible party. We understand that the planning committee or the DPA may help engage with that process, but they're the ones ultimately responsible for that. Okay. Designated planning agency. So the DPA is what we call them. And it's actually in its contact. So we have a list, so everybody knows there's already a county solid waste. I think it's called county DPA, designated planning agency contacts and regions on our website. That you click on there, every county has somebody listed except for Montcalm, but I'm gonna fix that when I get back. Figure that person out. Thank you. But anyways, in the future, counties will be identifying a new DPA or maybe their current one. But basically they're the worker bee, I say it. They're the worker bee of the process, making sure the process is followed. They're making sure that the notices are going out. So all meetings for the planning committee have to be public notice. They're open to the public. They're developing the plan, but they're under the direction from the planning committee. So DPA doesn't get to choose what's written in the plan. The planning committee gets to choose what's written in the plan, and DPA memorializes that, okay? They do not have voting rights in anything. They are just the person that's helping facilitate the process at the beginning. And then later on, they'll be the point person that kind of, as the top line says, serves as the primary government resource for the area. You know what I mean? So that they know, so if somebody has a question on, can I build this facility? They would contact that person and then they would help them. Well, you have to do this, you'd be consistent with their plan, or they're going to help build these goals. If they know all of the stuff about the plan, they're the person that knows the information. But in the meantime, they're building out, they're helping to make sure the process is followed. Let's see. Okay, essentially that's what everything, they draft the language for review. And they're doing all this under what the planning committee says to do. Okay, so the planning committee is the person, they are the stakeholder group for your planning area to help set the visions and the priorities for the county. So they are, I'll show you the makeup here in a minute. But they're the ones that the committee directs and says, well, we think this is our priority and everyone votes on it. Yep, that's what we want to do. And then that's put in the plan, right? They are ensuring that there's coordination and preparing the plan. You know, it's just a simple thing. They basically ensure that the DPA is fulfilling their roles, and if not, there's a process to get somebody kicked out if they're not doing their good job. But they are responsible for approving the plan as written prior for public comment, before it goes out for public comment, and they approve it before it goes out for final approval to the Board of Commissioners or the CAA municipal. Okay. So they have the final level of approval before it goes out for county level approval, but before it comes to Eagle for our final approval. Okay, so I've had a lot of conversation about this last couple of days. So the planning committee, the materials management planning committee, it's different. It has 11 members on the committee, 1 optional. And then if you do multi-county planning, you may appoint additional members, okay? The change of this, the makeup of this is different. In current law, there's 4 solid waste facility operators as a required, they were required as representation on the committee. In the future, there'll be 1. So 1 solid waste, 1 materials management hauler, so a hauler that hauls anything, and any of those materials we talked about. Material recovery facility operator. Compost or anaerobic digester facility operator, a waste diversion, reuse or reduction facility operator. So that's kind of broad, could be reuse or it could be the diversion center folks. Environmental interest group, and those 1, 2, 3, 4, the first 5 of them need to be servicing the planning area. They don't have to live in the county, they don't have to be in the county, they just have to be servicing those, okay? And then an environmental interest group needs to be somebody in the planning area. And then this one, the elected officials for county, township, city, or village, that's 3 representatives, okay? So there's 3 of 1 county represent 1 municipal or township and 1 city or village, okay? And then there's an individual that generates managed materials, which, you know, that could be, you know, anybody, essentially everybody generates materials, but they're thinking, I think, more like industry level, something that's in your county that's unique. And then the regional planning agency contact, which those are specific members, which we'll show you here later on. And then there's this option to add an adjacent community business representative. You don't have to put them on the committee, but you may put them on there. And then as a multi-county plan, like I said, you may do these, you don't have to do them all. So you have the 3 counties working together, and every county wants to have a county elected official on the group, then you can do that. So that's what this is, 1 elected county official or municipal government official for each county, and then a business that generates managed materials within the planning area. So you can do those if you want to. Yep.
So we're fortunate in Isabella County to partner with our local Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe. So how would a representative of, it's important to us, right, to have that stakeholder at the table? And I'm struggling to
Where they
link all them into a seat.
Yeah, I mean,
How forgiving is,
so I'm not 100% sure, but this is what we've said in the past for everything. I mean, even today. I mean, it has to be defendable. So like, I don't know if the person on your committee is really an environmental interest group member. I don't know that. You could say who they are. I don't know. But that doesn't mean, so you go through the whole process, bless you, go through the whole process and that person was a decision maker, let's say, and the committee and the committee member or somebody outside says, this person shouldn't have been on there. And that's kind of on, I mean, it's kind of on you. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think they could fit into that for an individual that generates a management here. So you could put them as that representing that interest because they obviously generate.
okay, thank you.
I don't know if online could hear that, but Rhonda said they could go on the individual that generates a managed material potentially for an Indian tribe. Yep.
It's kind of related, is there space for like environmental justice or waste justice role in this? Because they have control of the like siting of the facilities, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would just say, if you think that that's appropriate, I'm not gonna micromanage that, okay? So again, it has to be defendable. If and it's not coming from you, it would be your board of commissioners or the CAA, whoever it is, that kind of makes that decision. And so maybe, there's other environmental groups that they know of, so it'd be a matter of figuring out which one to use. So we're not gonna micromanage that process, though. Yep.
The CA, I mean, who appoints
Yeah.
members.
Yeah.
Especially if you have class like that, you're gonna have probably representatives from each of those people, the appointments.
Yeah, so what happens with a multi-county plan, which I'll talk a little about now, because you asked the question, but we'll talk about it later too, but in a multi-county plan, each county would become the CAA. And then they would appoint one DPA to do the work. And they have to do an interlocal agreement when they submit their notice of intent to us. And so in that agreement, they're gonna probably establish the way they're going to appoint their committee members. What is important to realize is that if you have a multi-county plan, you need one planning committee. You don't need 3 planning committees. Also, what's important to understand is some counties have a MRF and a compost facility, and others counties don't. But let's say there's one MRF and there's 10 counties around them. They're gonna be asked to sit on every county board in the coming months. So just as a thought, yep.
I was just gonna say something, I was somebody that's been to many planning committee meetings in my career for retired. And you'll have the opportunity of appointing people, you're not gonna get everybody on your committee. So during the meetings, they'll also invite specific groups to come and give their input in the process. So if there's somebody you can't get on your committee, during those meetings, you might have a different topic, but they're inviting other people, like your area to come and present you. So that way you get your input in with them during the process. So you're not part of the committee, but you're still offering their.
Right, and I mentioned that yesterday to Renee, I believe, that even if you're not on the committee, that's correct. Like, these are public meetings. They have to be published 10 days prior. You're publicized 10 days prior. You have the ability to show up, and you can have 50 people in the room every time they have a meeting, and they're supposed to identify what they're talking about in that next meeting. So it definitely, I would recommend that, or, making sure you do that. Do you have another question? Okay, I thought someone, oh, you had your question?
This is a few slides back, Christina, you had mentioned that you're gonna put the notice of intent out to either the county elected official or administrator or the board of commissioners, depending.
Oh, yeah, you're the other. You're the
Is your
executive.
intent to do it to both, or just to the,
Oh, do you have both?
yes,
Then I need both information.
no, you don't, well, I'd like to avoid you sending it to both. so
Oh,
you
yeah.
Don't have a conflict.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Elected
Yeah, we could, I mean,
CEO and the board about who gets.
yeah, I mean, we can talk about
The
that.
board's gonna have a role in it.
I think that there's like 3 counties out there. Oh, is it Oakland too? Oakland, you and Monroe, maybe? I think there's only 3. I might be making that up with Monroe. But yeah, so, I mean, we could talk through who that is, but it's gonna go to somebody at the county.
All right,
To make
I'll
that
let
decision.
you know who to send.
Okay. With a gluten-free cookie, just okay. Gluten-free sugar, okay. Oops, okay. So I know this is crazy because I know it. We wrote it out. But it's there for just information, like, don't worry about it. It's gonna be online. It's online right now, but there's some adjustments being made to it. But what I want you to pay attention to is there is a process. And this is exciting. You don't think it is, but you see those little red numbers, you don't need to read them. But those are default timeframes. They're timeframes and default mechanisms. What happens is you get so much time in each one of these little boxes to accomplish your task. And if you don't do it, it's moving to the next level. It's moving anyways, with or without an approval. Okay, and you think, well, that's a bunch of crap, but it's not. It's not, I tell you, we have, I'm not gonna say the county, but we have a plan amendment that has been in a house for over 8 years. That has been stuck between one of these stages. So technically speaking, if that board made their next action, if they did the action, the next step in the process, they could pick that amendment up and go. Board of Commissioners have changed, priorities have changed, like all those things have changed, okay? So that was a problem in the last round, which is why we wanted to amend the plan or the process. Also, there are, again, don't worry about all, this will show up. But the other thing is, there wasn't a time frame for municipal approval in the past. So you guys get all your work done, you're all excited, you put the plan out there for your municipalities, which means they have to approve, 67% of the people or municipalities have to approve it. And they wouldn't do it, because that wasn't a priority to them. Years and years and years after they received it, they may or may not have approved that plan. So that's huge. You can't, how do you have a process that's supposed to be looked at every 5 years and it's still stuck back somewhere else for 3 or 4 or 5 years, right? So those red dots are important. And we talked a long time. We had a stakeholder group and we talked, okay, 60 days is too much, 180 days is too little, or whatever, we went back and forth, all these different random things, and it's not perfect. But what I need you to know is this, and I'm going to break this down in the next couple slides, so smaller so you can see it a little better, okay? But the thing that's important is we're going to initiate the plan. That's that little box right there. And once we do that, there's 180 days to do stuff. 180 days once we initiate, which is why it's so important to be engaged, okay? Then once you file your notice of intent, this green arrow shows up. You've got 36 months to complete all these other tasks, including drafting your plan. Okay? 3 months from this arrow, or 36 months from this month or arrow to this red arrow. So when we call for it, it's a go. And that's why it's so important to be engaged and listen to this stuff. You're like, it's not fun stuff. I know. Oh, I love it. I've been here for 22 years. I love it. Right. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna break it down a little bit now. So in a little more digestible. So we initiate the process. And then what happens is the process goes like this. The Board of Commissioners or executive. So don't hate me because there's BOC up there. But there is the Board of Commissioners, county's gonna get the notice. They get to either decline or accept that responsibility. Okay. And if they decline, it goes to the municipality working jointly. Now, I don't know if municipalities will work jointly. I don't know that. People ask me that question all the time. I have no idea. 14 communities would work together to say, we're going to work and, do this together and become the CEA. But if they do, there's an option for them to do it. If they decline, then it goes to the regional planning agency. Okay. And then whichever entity decides to do that, they technically are taking on responsibility to become the CAA, and then they got work to do before they file a notice of intent. Okay, so someone has to say, yep, at this county, I'm going to do it. I'm intending to be responsible and I want to do it. Have those authors, be able to approve these plans and be, in charge of all these things or not. But they're going to say, they don't technically become the CAA until they submit the notice of intent, but there are action steps that have to happen. Okay. And these are the action steps. Okay, so Eagle initiates the process and we say to be determined. We don't know 100% yet. We're thinking of probably the first part of the calendar year. But because there's this 180 day, as soon as you do this, these things have to happen. So everybody's got to kind of be ready to go. So you can't wait. You can't just, I don't know if I'm gonna do it or not, right? I think we really got to start thinking about it. So 180 days after we initiate, these things happen. So somebody decides they're going to become the CA eventually, and then they have to do this. They have to go out, depending on your size, and communicate with their adjacent counties and consult with them to see about doing a multi-county plan together. Okay, so they have to do that in 180 days. If, let's say, through that consultation, they decide, yep, I want to work with this county or these counties, they're going to have to develop an interlocal agreement. And then they will file the notice of intent. Okay, there's this, depending on the size of the county, you can put a 30-day requirement that the county that you sent the letter to or you consulted with to make a decision. But technically, that doesn't mean that the other group couldn't put a time frame in it. 180 days is not a long time. I mean, think about getting a boards meeting, everybody's talking through it, building out the interlocal agreement, thinking about all those intricacies, right? But it's important, that's why we're saying, please start these conversations now. You don't have to wait for us to do this. You know it's coming, okay? So let's just know that, like, if you're talking to other counties, then let's really think about those things. And that is one of the reasons we did what's called the MMCE grants this last year. Materials Management County Engagement Grants is so counties would start engaging in the process, understand that they have a plan, understand that there's partnerships potentially that can be made. Whether you build a plan out together or not, you might be able to use and help each other with your infrastructures and program and education, all those pieces, right? Okay, and then once you file the notice of intent, that 36-month time clock starts. Yep.
Since it might not be intuitive to everybody about waste hauler contracts and how critical that is on the front ends and not engage in a lengthy waste hauler contract right now, as counties might be trying to work together. Is Eagle planning to communicate that, or is that too delicate of a thing?
No, I mean, it's in our slides of things to do,
Okay.
like, and I talk about it. So like, there are lots of things like that. There's your agreements out there with your facilities, or maybe you already have interlocal agreements to do certain things. I know counties already do work with different municipalities in other counties for collection of recyclables or organics, those type of things. Really, you should, I don't know what your contract says, your agreement says, what your ordinance says. I highly recommend, and I'll tell you again in a little bit, please look at those things. And when your things are potentially coming up for revision, you think about it. You have a new law with requirements. There's potential for lots of partnerships here. Really think about those things. And maybe you can either put a clause in those things to say, after we start this process in year 2 or whatever, we're gonna come back to this, and or we want to revamp this, or like put a requirement in there, they have to reopen it and negotiate. I don't know, but yeah, there's definitely some things to think about for sure. Okay, so step 2. So let's say you file your notice of intent, you did all that consultation, you submitted your interlocal agreement because you're working together with other counties. Then you have another 180 days to do these things. Again, each one of these items could take time. Okay, so we are really saying to folks right now, we should do some of these things up front, and I'll talk about those in a second. But you'll have to appoint a DPA. The CAA, the county approval agency, will appoint the DPA, and we believe that that will happen when they file their notice of intent. So that will already be done. That step will already be done with that, so we know who's doing the work. Okay, so we know who to reach out to. You're gonna have to appoint an official materials management planning committee. Those 11, 12, 14, 50, however many members it is, but 11 minimum, right? You will have to prepare the work program. That work program, well, again, will outline the budget and how the steps you're going to take to do your plan development. I didn't say this, but I think it's like in that one slide with all the dates, the crazy, that I think you have like 18 months-ish to draft your plan once you get past this step 2. Okay, so you have about that much time to actually draft your plan. And then so let's say the DPA drafts that work program, the planning committee has to approve that that program, and then it comes to Eagle, and we have to approve that work plan in 180 days. So like, I'm not sure what that looks like yet. Logistics, when all 83 counties, all their plans come in and we all have to look at something. I don't know this yet. We're figuring that out. So our intent is to create some guidance materials to help counties, you know, whether it's a template or if it ends up being a guidance, everybody will use the same work program. I know, I understand that. That's what happens. But, you know, maybe we do a template, maybe do an easier format. I'm not sure. Those are things we're trying to work out with. So if you have ideas of ways to make that process easier, definitely let us know. But we think that that would be beneficial because that work program will have to be approved by lots of entities quickly. Yep.
Can I just, like, defining words here. Work program is more like an outline of what you plan to do, and then the plan, work plan.
Yes,
is
it's
the
how you're
actual
going-
plan.
Yeah, the work program is actually, well, it's in rule, but we have to make some adjustments to rules. But it's really just essentially the plan that you're going to use to build, or the program, the steps to take to complete the development of the plan. And
Okay.
it's not like we hold it to you like, oh, you said week forward, you're gonna be doing this topic, like you may have to come back to a topic, like we're not that, but it's like understanding that there is going to be a process and time commitment to do these things, to build out these items, right? Within 18 months or 17 months or whatever, however long it takes. So like, let me go back. To the fun one.
Yeah.
But however long it takes in this box. So if you could get your work program done fast, you get your committee, you appoint your DPA, you already have your planning committee kind of established, you have to just do all those things. And you get it done quickly. Let's say you get it done in 60 days. That means you have additional time to draft your plan. Okay, that's the only part that you could, I mean, you could come in. You could come in at, 60 days and have extra time to do that work. But let's say you come in 180 days, you come in on day 90. You don't get any extra time. Once you come in for the notice of intent and you file that, you get 180 days from that date. So you don't get any extra time in that piece. Does that make sense?
I got a question.
Yep.
So from the time the county notice, 180 days to do all the things that you were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
Can the county be proactive and start now?
Not all of it, but we're gonna talk about some of it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and some of us, some of us, yes, we really are highly encouraging that. Yep. Yep. Yep.
So if you have multiple counties and it goes through, like, let's say there's 4 counties and 3 of them go through and say, yep, this is good, but one of them is like, nope, we don't want, that's not,
Like through the process, you mean?
yeah. So then you basically have to start over.
You don't necessarily have to start over, do we show this in these slides? Multi-counties, so the way it was today in the previous law or whatever, we do have a couple of multi-county plans, and in the process, yeah, every county has the ability, there's all municipalities and each one have the ability, they have to do 67%. I mean, I didn't get into that, I guess I could, but anyway, if the municipalities decline, let's say they decline it. Well, then there is it goes back, let's say, it would go back to the county, the CAA to draft the plan that they would approve. And then it would jump over the municipal approval and then come to us and it could be as a package still, okay? Now, let's say, I mean, that's why you have an agreement. You have 3 counties, you're working together, we have an agreement. That means we're working together, we have an agreement, right? So and if there's some things you need to go negotiate back and forth because it doesn't look right for one county, then that's where you do that as you build it out, right? So I don't see it happening at the county level. It would be if municipalities choose not to approve it by 67%. Okay, I'm gonna go back to that crazy thing. So we are trying to be more strategic in what we're talking about today, but I love all these. I love it. Good questions. Okay. The new law has this little fun one that you can't see, but like this is a municipal approval. Once it gets through the process, the Board of Commissioners, the Planning Committee approves it for 90 days or for 60-day public comment, and then it goes out and then they approve it again. It goes out to the Board of Commissioners and they approve it, or the CAA, whoever that is, and they approve it. Then it goes out for municipal approval. And this little box here is 180 days or 120 days, sorry, that municipalities get to vote on it. So let's say you have 20 municipalities in your county and 2 or 3 people vote during the 120 day to, well, I don't know, if it is 67%. You have to get 67% approval of whoever votes. So if half of them vote, you have to get, it's at least 67% of it to be approved. Okay, if they don't approve it, then it would come to Eagle. It would, and there's some back and forth, but essentially they get 120 days, I'm sorry, to make that decision. Okay, and whoever votes in that time period, good or bad, approves or disapproves, that's who is calculated in that. Yep.
So just for clarification, if all of your townships go to sleep
Yeah.
Then the, plan goes on to Eagle and.
Yeah. There's some stuff.
Yeah.
There's some extras.
They have an exception.
Well, there are some provisions that we can extend this, but
But we don't want to.
we don't want to, and there's only in certain steps, that we can do that. But really, it's about making sure everybody's ready to go. I mean, and that's one of this outreach part, right? As and the counties that have been amending their plans in the past, those that are like, they know what needs to be done and they're just doing it. They know they're getting it done. They're showing up to the municipalities for their meetings to answer questions so that the vote is taken. And there's ways to do that. You can hire consultants, you could hire a person, staff, to go to these meetings to make sure that stuff gets pushed through. Or a vote occurs, right? You just want to know that everybody is on board or not on board, so you can see where you're at. Okay, so after all of these things happen on this top, under step 2, you're eligible for that MMP grant that we mentioned earlier, that's $60,000, $70,000, or in the per capita for the first 3 years. And then there's going to be a MMP grant, a contract that you have to sign and all that stuff. But essentially it is a pass-through grant. I'll say that again. It's a pass-through grant. You don't have to, you don't have to do the work and then ask for the money. The money comes to you because you intend to do this work. And in that grant, there's going to be responsibilities, right? And you have to show progress towards meeting your goals that are in your plan. But essentially that money comes to you as long as you're doing that, showing progress towards meeting your goals or drafting or developing your plan. Yep.
Is that additional funding to the 60,000 or is it 60,000?
That's a 60,000. That's a,
I hate to jump into this right now, but I'm gonna ask it to you. It isn't even nearly money to fund this program, and I want to do it.
which county are you?
Shadow's County,
Okay.
and we're in
Write
a
it down.
little bit different political realm than
Yep.
some people here. You can't fund a staff person for 60,000.
Nope.
And it's gonna take 90 plus to write the plan, just the first year.
So I
Most of the
encourage,
money's gonna be gone.
yep, I encourage Shiawassee County to work with 2 other counties, and $210,000 is much better. And so
That's
that,
what
so,
it's-
yeah, huh?
You gotta, all politics is not, our commissioners and I are. They're just not.
Right.
So we're not here to try to lobby with you to get more money for
Yeah.
this. I mean, is there any chance that 60,000 can increase? Double if you could hire a staff person. But at this point, I've got townships, first of all, they don't know this is coming.
Right.
The other was like, we don't.
Yeah, they don't, but so,
Because a lot of this is cost. The markets, recycling.
Yeah.
But you're dealing with local politicians. And they're like, our board, Mark Wiltshire told us, I don't really like recycling, so just slow that stuff. That's what we're doing. I can do it. I'm the county health department, I can do it well. But I have to have fun to do it.
right, and so you don't, it may not
Taxes
be,
and the special assessments are not even limited. It has to be state funding. And what this is an underfunded. It's not unfunded, but it's underfunded.
so I think it's just about perspective and how to rally the resources that you have. I mean, and those are the things that, we'll talk about in a minute here with the things to do with your multi-county planning benefit. But really, that's where the benefit comes. It does. I know you said politics. I understand that. We have politics for everything, like whatever. I just don't listen to news, so then you don't have it. But no, anyways, but the thing is, if you can keep your programs that you have, your ordinances and your agreements and your stuff, you want to have your own citing process, because Shiawassee County doesn't want to be able to, they want this isolation distance, which is different than this other county that you're working with. If we set up the plan format so you can have separate, those major mechanisms in place and you just identify things, then I don't know why they wouldn't work together. I mean, but I get it. So it's something we'll have to work through, but the 60,000, that's what it is.
But you have to
And-
per capita on top of that.
You do have per capita, and I don't know, I have it on my computer, but
Yeah, just for.
There-
It's gonna go right to the engineering firm to write the plan, which is fine.
Mhm.
But I can't, like, we have landfill. So there's some beneficial things, but we can't
There's a lot of other tax. You can do a special assessment, a millage, that isn't even. So what we need, and your focus group, your stakeholders group, down in the state, if they can find a way to increase that fund, at least so that each county can be staffed. And some of the bigger counties, programs, the little counties don't have. And $10,000 to incentivize us mining another county, that's not enough. We're surrounded by big counties.
Right.
So our board of commissioners are territorial, and that if we go with Saginaw or Genesee, they're just gonna tell us what to do. They'll never go to go into some sort of regional area, so we have to figure it out on our own. And like I said, I can do it. I need it to be funded.
Right. Well,
Simply, that's.
So in the previous, I mean, the last round, there was no funding. So $0 and you had the same requirement. Okay, and the option was we could write the plan, which we'll go through those. We could write the plan for you. You could choose that, but your land will not be allowed to be expanded on. There are things, there are provisions in there to make it a self-implementing plan, which we'll go through. So there are things, yeah, if you choose not to, you choose not to. But there are ramifications of those decisions and the ability for you to not get money, even though you have to implement the stuff that we do for you. So like, I mean, it's really $10,000. Yeah, it's not a lot by itself, but $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, if you can get other counties to work with you. It doesn't have to be the county next to you. It could be a county that you work with, that you could do a county plan. It doesn't have to be, you know, I mean, I don't know where you're at in the county, but
Right between landscape plan.
yeah, no, I mean, like, I know which one you work with, but Genesee County, where I don't know why they wouldn't want to do something too. So like, there are definitely, our mindset has to change, like waste and materials do not stop at the county line. They don't. They are managed everywhere. They are managed, you know, there are ways to create incentives through ordinances and maybe flow control to a facility that you put a fee on and then you get the money. There are ways to do that. And that's why, like I mentioned yesterday, you know, utilizing our recycling team that they have, that's what they do. They go out there and help build and look at your ordinances and your programs and see if there's better ways to do things. So there's ways to do it. We just can't. It doesn't matter who it is. We have to do it together. It's collaboration. That's what the whole event's about. It's about collaboration and partnership. And so I think it can be done. It's just, we can't think about where we were and we can't be in this like box of where we're, you know, like we're not moving forward. We have to, we're doing it. And there are ways to take care of it, but I'm gonna move on to this. So what's the focus on now? We're saying now to appoint your materials management planning committee at an unofficial capacity. I know I told Sarah not to, like 3 months ago. But I mean, as we start thinking about this, there's true benefit to appointing that committee now. And it would be at an unofficial capacity. It'd be because it's not official yet, unless you're Genesee and they're amending their plan. So you have to keep yours, but you could do both. You could have 2 committees going. He's like, please don't want to do that, but I'm just saying, really, we could really start thinking about that because those, if you can have a group of your stakeholders, of those people, and they could start thinking through some of these logistics and maybe creating partnerships and talking through, helping to create vision and priorities, then that's who you want at the table is those folks there, okay? So there is a benefit to doing that. And really start this adjacent county discussions to see if there's potential partnerships. Maybe there's not, you know, but at least you know. Now, once we initiate the process, you're gonna have to do a formalized something to show us that you had those discussions, right? I'm not saying you're not gonna still have to do the formalities part of that, but if you can really start those behind the scenes discussions on, well, this makes sense to work together, or this doesn't. I mean, I met with Tuscola County and Santa County yesterday at lunch. And, you know, there's a true ability for them to do a multi-county plan, a tri-county plan, or even include Lapeer. And like, there are things that they could do and we were able to answer questions to help with that, you know, I don't know if that'll happen, but there's definitely benefit for them to do that. And I really encourage you to review your current mechanisms and partnerships you already have. Like we mentioned earlier, that you look at your stuff. And if things are coming due, let's really start thinking about the new law and what you're going to be asked to do. And then we're asking folks to confirm your current DPA. Like I said, it's online. And we have, we do send messages out to them and, also a work group that we have. But please confirm that and see if you have the right person on there. There's been some changes from these discussions the last few days that we've been that I've written down to do, right? And then really, please just engage with planning discussions as much as you can. Start talking to your folks, it's coming. And this letter here that's on this little bullet, a letter will be going to the Board of Commissioners soon. Also included, it will be DPAs, the regional planning agencies. We may do, if I can get contact from municipalities, maybe we'll send the message as broadly as we can. But this letter will go out from our division, letting folks know that this stuff is coming. And that letter will come out once our information sheets and guidance materials are ready for folks to really look at, to kind of digest it all smaller, okay? And we will be discussing more detailed pre-planning activities in our next work group meeting. There's this side from yesterday as well. There is additional funding support, so maybe some of these things can be, added to some of those, the things that you were having issues with your Shiawassee County. But there are these grant programs. Again, these are done through our recycling team. The top one, the Recycling Access and Voluntary Participation Program, needs the plan approval, so that's not out there yet. And talking about the benefits of multi-county planning. Again, you have the compounding effect of those additional dollars, whether you think it's enough or not, it's still a compounding effect of additional dollars. You also get to pool your resources. You don't need a person who knows everything in every county, but it would be nice to have a person in the planning area, folks. Is it on here? Is it yours or mine? Yours? Yes. My eyes are fine. No, my feet. No, okay. So yeah, you could start to like have maybe expertise in different counties that you can pull on and talk through. You'll have a streamlined access to regional facilities because you're working together, right? You'll know those things. Also, if you have similar challenges, you may have similar solutions to those things, right? Makes sense. Also, if you're the large county surrounding, you have a lot of smaller counties around, you may already be the main infrastructure for those counties, right? Why not be that also the main hub and work together with those folks? I mean, it makes sense. Like if you're already doing the work, maybe you can set up some things together. Also, it will be easier to fill the planning committee seats, like we mentioned earlier, okay? Because you'll be pulling, 4 counties will just need 1 of those people, not 4 of those people. Yeah.
Proves if the counties approve the committee and you have more than one, let's say 2 counties. Do both boards have to approve those?
You're gonna develop your agreement so you know how you're going to appoint it. Yeah. We're not gonna micromanage that. That's on you guys.
I just.
Yeah. Yep. And then just overall economies of scale, right? If you are able to get contracts, hauler contracts to go through 3 counties instead of 1. I know that, municipalities, I understand municipalities have the same thing, like municipalities who work together, and they have the same economies of scale, but think about it broader. Like if we can have counties working together and haulers working with those, you're gonna have overall reduced costs with those economies of scale. So we wanted to ask this question. I think we have time to do this. We have people that tell us things. We'd like to know, pull this group real quick. Or does anybody have any thoughts? So with some specific challenges besides political, right? We got that. We know that that's always the issue. But anything besides political stuff that you see, what are your challenges so that we can help address some of those concerns? Yep.
For Ottawa County, my biggest thing is we have Mesquite and it's got a well-developed, Kent County that's well-developed. We're decently developed. Allegan, I'm not as, I would say similar to us or smaller. We're all gonna wanna go our own. So how do we encourage still the multi-county when you've got robust systems already out there to a certain level? So I have a creative solution in my head, but then the 10,000, it's funding is not as needed as in our issue. So that's not an incentive. It's more with the other method of multi-county, I would say. That would be a challenge for us in the sense that we're developed.
What's your creative solution?
Interlocal agreement,
Yeah,
just choosing still to work together. And maybe have subcommittees, like I've talked to our boss about it a little bit, he's like, that's, yeah, because. Half our materials are already going there anyways, but half of their landfilling at this time, not changed, but it's coming to Ottawa. So it's still, it's nice to know what's going on, but just interlocal agreements is what
yeah, I mean,
my thought would be.
the other thing that people mention, and, you know, logistically, again, I don't know how this works, but is like, to set up. Hauling licensing ordinances in those counties that work together, those 3 counties. And flow the material to the facilities that you choose. So the negotiation is like, okay, Kent County, you want our material, you're gonna do this with us together. And we'll let our material go to your facility. To be part of a flow control through your ordinance. Okay, so like. I don't know if that's, yeah, I don't know what nightmare that looks like, but I think it's pretty doable. I'm just saying, people do it all the time.
Rangers will take their waste to Hingham, they're not gonna bring it to waste management's landfill in Shiawassee, if we try to recalibrate each of them, we have to dump you.
If you have a hauler licensing ordinance, then yes, they have the license.
Yeah, because the haulers right now have contracts with individual communities,
Right.
not a county. And then we already have agreements of where things are gonna go. So how are you gonna change all that?
That's what, it's a process, right? And it is something to start thinking about. There are counties out there today that have those mechanisms in place. And it's a lot of times for specific materials. But now you can do it for all the materials. You can do it for recyclables and organics and solid waste. And in the ones, if you're going to a publicly owned facility, you can include that in your county plan. But if you do ordinances and all that stuff outside of that, it's on you guys to, you know, to enforce it. But people are doing that and they have done that. I mean, maybe is Andy in the room? You guys have an ordinance that does that, right?
Yeah.
So, and we do have some examples on our website, our toolbox. Yep.
So, I don't know anything about the markets, but my general sense of things is that there is a pretty symbiotic relationship right now with the amount of material that's coming post-consumer out of households and the infrastructure that exists in Michigan for getting it out to markets, right? So those are haulers and MRFs. Just talking about containers. This law is going to force more coming out of households. Right? Absolutely. So that's gonna mean more people have to get into the business of hauling, or haulers have to extend their fleets, but more importantly, there has to be more work capacity. And right now, the work capacity isn't in the state, it's out of states, Chicago and some other places. So those people, I mean, I'm talking out of turn, kind of, jump on me, but like, we have a work in Kalamazoo. And he's a small guy, like, he can sit at our table as one of the 11 people representing March, but he's not necessarily the person that's going to be able to handle all the stuff that's coming from our county.
Right, so yeah, I agree. So we're in this process, so much like Rhonda mentioned earlier, we have 28 years of capacity for disposal at this point. And then how did that happen?
That's not.
No, pause. Yep. So, yeah, but how did we get there? Because we had a siting process and a planning program that allowed them to develop those capacities over time. So it doesn't happen in day one, and it doesn't happen in probably year 5. It happens over time that we want to have as much utilization capacity in the state of Michigan or more than we have for disposal. Right? So it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. So that's the important thing. Yeah, we know that. There's gonna be some things. Yep. We're gonna
Just
run
on
out of time.
that,
Yeah.
I think some of the challenges are developing those agreements. I think it's at least perceived concern about authority.
Yeah.
Who has one approval process. I think it also adds some challenges for counties developing the plan. About managing that process, even though you have one DPA. Now you have a lot more approvals to get through. So I think there's some. I think it's already gonna be a tight time frame. So one of the concerns that I have is just now we have a larger area and things may slow down.
Right. Okay, I appreciate that. We're gonna move on to the next, yep. Oh, well, let's move on and we'll come back. Well, if we have time, we got 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I can make it quick. I think
Yeah.
a lot of mine has already been touched on. I think some of these are pretty short too, so we'll definitely still leave time for questions. So I think this has kind of been touched on kind of a lot already, actually. And I think that a lot of you probably have an idea what you want to do, but we're still gonna try to really hammer it in, you know, why you should plan. So basically, you know your county the best. The county knows their own needs, you know, their priorities, their goals. They know what they already have, what they might be kind of lacking. You know what your residents want, what your business needs. You know that we don't, you know, we really don't have that expertise. I'll get into this on the next slide, but the Eagle Prepared Plan is pretty much just a standard law. I mean, we have requirements in the statute we need to follow, and that's pretty much what it will be. If you know, undertake writing your own plan, you do have the ability to include your own citing criteria. You can have more stringent citing criteria. It really prioritizes, you know, what you set. It prioritizes getting, you know, the host community approval. I mean, it really kind of goes more towards, you know, helping the county achieve what their goals are and what their needs are. You will have, the authority to approve it yourself. You'll be eligible for that grant funding. And again, avoid implementing the Eagle Plan, which I will get to a little bit more. And Christina already mentioned too that writing your own plan, you can include flow control to locally or publicly owned facilities as well. We did eliminate import and export authorizations, which were in the old plans. However, if you do have a publicly owned facility, you can still include flow control. So with our Eagle Prepared Plan, again, we just have a standard format, specific requirements for citing. It's just all materials utilization facilities and the processing and transfer station, or wait, flip that. Transfer and processing facilities. We changed that terminology, so I'm still getting used to that one. Those will be authorized to go through the citing criteria, and we'll just have just one basic criteria. We don't even have that second level of the more stringent criteria or that host community approval. It's just, do they meet these basic, you know, standard criteria? Even though we will be writing the plan, the board is still automatically responsible for implementation. So even though it's not a plan that they wrote, this will be responsible for it. We also will still be prioritizing that regional approach. So if it makes sense to us, you know, if we're writing a few plans to throw them together, we can do that. And we don't really have the bandwidth to be writing dozens and dozens of plans. There's only 3 of us. So, you know, that may be something that we would go for. Again, you're not eligible for the grant funding, not those first 3 years where you get the per capita, not any years after that. And then a few of the other requirements in the statute that kind of are set out is that an Eagle Prepared Plan does require waste haulers to provide recycling pickup in accordance with the benchmark recycling standards. So Christina mentioned earlier also that that kind of is some basic access requirements, kind of based on population, whether you need to provide curbside pickup or a drop off, but haulers would be required to support that. And so I know that this was a lot of information and we don't want you sitting out there thinking, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like, how are we going to do this? You know, this is too much. We've really been trying and to get resources out there to help you. So first and foremost, we are here to help. I mean, we want to help answer questions, support you, do whatever we can. You can reach out to us anytime, but we've also been trying to get like more physical resources out for you to be able to kind of go and, you know, take a look at yourselves as well. I'll go through them really quickly, but we have a new GIS map. We have a lot of resources on our webpage, and then we also have some other staff, our recycling specialist team that can assist in other things too. So our materials management facilities GIS map, this is not available to the public quite yet, but it's very close. In the near future, it will be launched. This just shows locations and some basic information about our registered facilities under, you know, our section. As you know, you don't know how to do the pointer, but those are the facilities that are included on this map. And again, we're hoping that this will kind of help you get sort of an inventory of what facilities you do have in your county, kind of have like a better visual of where they are, see what might be lacking. Just another way to look at it. Okay. Okay, we also have our MMP webpage. We've been working really hard to revamp that and get a lot of resources on there. We have a new toolbox that includes some sample ordinances, agreements, a lot of info sheets. We have one out there right now about multi-county plans, plan requirements. We have quite a few in the works. We've really been trying to get those out. But kind of a lot are in like the approval, our internal right now, so they should be posted in the near future. But we're really working to get those out there for all the topics that we're hearing from you that, you have questions about. We're trying to address them in there. And then we also have, our grant information posted there, and that's ongoing too. And then we also have our recycling specialist team. They're kind of divvied up for different regions of the state, so will be posted on our website as well. Who's, which areas they're at, but they can assist with developing, funding ordinances, agreements, contracts. They can kind of look at your programs that you have now, kind of help with achieving, your recycling or utilization goals you might have, as well as program development going forward. So with that, Carly will talk about a few other resources that we have.
Yeah, 9 minutes.
Can I ask a question?
GIS.
Sure.
Is that, will your GIS folks share that with the data? With the county? GIS. folks?
I'm like 99% sure that you can download the
The layer.
layer. Yeah, I forget what the exact term is, but yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the other resources we have. Going to touch on Megadata, the MMCE grants, and the authorization program. First is the Megadata, or no, we'll do MMCE grants actually. So the purpose of those were to get counties thinking and talking about materials management as a whole, and just communicating, collaborating with each other, trying to get this process started again, because again, we haven't done these in a very long time. We had 56 counties participate, which was actually pretty good. We were pretty excited about that. We are working with them currently to get their final deliverables in, but we are in the process of wrapping all that up. Next, I will focus on the Megadata. We worked with RS, Anna over there, worked with me and Jeff very tirelessly on this project. We had a lot of people contribute internally. It is a statewide data collection process. Basically with this shift, we need a baseline of where the state's at. So we use this to kind of work together and try to figure that out so that we can help you guys with this planning process. We'll have some of that information so you guys won't have to do quite as much work. And we are still aware it's going to be a lot of work, but this should help get things started. We are working internally to try and get those deliverables finalized. Data collection was completed at the end of last year. So we will be putting them up on our website here, probably in the next month or so. We're, like I said, working through it internally just to figure out what we have and how's the best way to share it with all of you. So these are some of the things that we will have available. Right now, the final report, which is basically the summary of what RF did, is on our website. Some of you may have reviewed county profiles. Those are not on the website yet. We don't have all of them completed yet. When those are finished, we will put them on the website. Right now, if you think yours is done, most of the MMCE grant participants, county profiles are not completed. But the other counties, if they have not received them yet, they can request them from us and we can email them to you. We will also on the website here in the relative future be putting up a facility list, and we will be working with our GIS team to also make those maps, and then this location and service connections by facility we will also put on the website. So next is the authorization program. Rhonda talked about this a lot this morning. We've been working with Emerge Technologies, which has the Retrack platform, to get all these up and running. We have 4 program types right now that are completed and up and running that we have been collecting data on now for 2 years. There were some hiccups to start like any other program, but we've got those ones ironed out, and I think we're doing pretty good with our data collection for that. And then we will be adding the new Part 115 facilities, so the MRFs, waste diversion centers, the anaerobic digesters, and the processing and transfer facilities. More information about that is also on our website, and we will update it as we get that available. Thank you. So back to me real quick.
those regional planning agencies we mentioned earlier, Charlie, and Amy, these are the people, the 14, regions that are outlined in law, that's actually who they are. Oops, wrong thing. And essentially, go to our website, join our listservs. You've heard this every time we talk, I think. We have a Q&A document for planning. If you have questions beyond that, or even with those answers you have, questions, please send them to our box that's down there. Definitely keep monitoring our website, the toolkits on there, a lot of good resources. And then we meet monthly, the third Wednesday of every month with a MMP work group. It has expanded, but if you are not in there and you think you should be, please reach out to us. We have a meeting next Wednesday. I highly recommend to stay engaged, to be there. We're going to get a little bit further, deeper dive by topic area. We have an hour and a half meetings when we do that. And with that, we've had a lot of questions throughout the time. We can answer a couple questions.
You said so, state rights your plan, just a little clarification. The landfill that's in your county cannot have an expansion.
Correct. No new disposal or landfill expansion.
Okay, that's a loss. That
Write your plan. That's your neighboring counties. You'll be good. Yep.
Yeah, I'm in Mac, I know that was part of people that helped out on this too, Michigan Association. But maybe you could get with them for like outreach or also some of the data about counties, because they have a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, I did present to their environmental group last Friday, 2 Fridays, I don't know, one of the Fridays.
I'm in there.
You heard me then. I did a good job. I'm not, apparently not, because you don't. Yeah, no, that's fine.
But no, there's a lot of material about the counties.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and all of our outreach, like I said, please just join our listservs, get in our groups, do what we can so we can disseminate information as much and as often as we can.
How about off the record?
Off the record. I was like, that's off the record. You need to write that down. Off the record. Okay, we have it down. Next question.
When the plan is all done and everything's all approved, what's the turnaround for getting the money?
Oh, the plan doesn't have to be done before the money, once you file the notice.
Whenever everything all.
I'm not 100% sure. We're still working on that out. Hopefully fairly quickly, because it's a pass-through grant. Still has to go through our administrative process, but it shouldn't take too long to do that. Yep. Yep.
You talk about implementing and maintaining the plan, what's that gonna look like, once we all have that?
Yeah, I think that's a later conversation. I mean, I think we're really focused on the beginning, but definitely it will be part of the roadshow going forward, but not so much right now. Is that okay? Yep.
It said that we have to use waste haulers for our recycling.
No.
Okay.
No, you can use a hauler that's for each material type.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have our own truck and our own driver.
Yep, you could use your own truck and your own driver. Yep, back in. I hope so.
I think so.
I think so.
Under the regional plan, I think that, I don't know.
Well, they've been the designated planning contact or agency for those tri-county.
I believe they'll be,
Yeah, they probably will.
I'm hoping, yeah. So.
They're already a tri-county, they're already a multi-county plan, so they've completed the task. I saw more hands. Yeah, one.
In the benchmark recycling standards, earlier we talked about the curbside recycling is required for communities. More or over 5,000 for communities, is that township or village, cities?
I believe it's municipalities, which would be all of those, right? And I would recommend talking to the recycling team.
Okay.
Yep.
Will there be a notice of intent form or?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably, we're probably going to utilize an upgrade and do like a Survey Monkey type of situation, something electronic. And where you'd have to upload all your stuff, but basically you need to have official signatures and stuff, but yeah, all that stuff.
And that will go to the,
Yeah.
the Board of Commissioners.
Yeah,
Direct.
well, the instructions on how to do all that will go.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
That will be our last question.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Christina and her team will be around. So perhaps find them as well as they left their contact information on the slide. If not, they can go back and see, write it down.
Yeah.
But it's lunchtime, people get hungry, so.
Thank you, guys.